Tonight I promised to talk about The Secret of the Golden Flower, specifically Dr. C.G. Jung's commentary on it. This essay of Dr. Jung's appears in volume 13 of the collected works in Alchemical Studies by Dr. C.G. Jung, published by Princeton University Press. And it's the first essay in the book. The first point that Dr. Jung makes in this essay is that it's difficult for the European to understand the East. And it so happens that I've spent a lot of time in India and Japan especially, also in the Middle East, but I spent 8 years in Japan, and I also was school trained in Defense Language Institute for Mandarin Chinese. So I do know something about the East, and I want to help you appreciate just how difficult this is. Now, you see a character before you, and this character is the Japanese character for man. The Japanese word is otoko, and it's also a Chinese character. It's Japanese kanji, which means that it comes from Chinese. And this character is actually made up of two characters. On the top, the square part of it, is a rice field, and on the bottom is a man holding a sword, which represents strength. So the sword is the device that goes down to the lower left in this image. Now, randomly, a bunch of Westerners were approached about this particular image, and they were told, this is the Japanese character for man. In which direction is this man going? And the result of the survey was that 90% of all Westerners said that the man was going to the right, while 90% of all Japanese said he was going to the left. Now, I think that reflects the fact that Westerners think of running forward, moving forward, leaning into things, whereas the Japanese think in terms of a strong position. And especially, I gave you the secret at the beginning, the Japanese would see the katana, the sword that comes down, and so they would understand that that's the front of the man, and that the man is back in a strong position, something like a karate position or something like that. Now, one other reason that this is significant is that Thomas asked me Lackland or Monterey. Actually, it was Roslyn. I had a contract school in Roslyn, Virginia, that trained me in Mandarin. Okay, but there's something else that Dr. Jung didn't know about, and that is that in about the 1970s, I think, there was a Japanese man who had a stroke, unfortunately, and he lost the right side of his brain. And so he didn't have the use of it for reading purposes. And so they did some studies with this man and discovered that he could read the phonetic characters of Japanese. He could read the kana, what are called the kana. Hiragana and katakana are the kana characters of Japanese, but he could not read the Chinese characters, the kanji characters, which it turned out you read on the right side of your brain, whereas you read phonetic characters, as we do with our phonetic Roman letters. We have Roman letters, and Japanese also use Roman letters phonetically. And so the Roman letters, the kana, katakana, and hiragana, all are phonetic, and they are read on the left side of the brain. And so you see that a Westerner would read something, read about something, learn about something entirely on left brain, entirely on the logos side of the brain, whereas a Japanese or Chinese tends to read it on the right side of the brain, at least for Chinese characters, which is this is one, and it's a picture. And I remember when I was facile at this, at one time I was reading over 2,000 Chinese characters, and when I was facile in it, for me, it was very much like seeing pictures on the page and seeing the images go by, as Dr. Jung refers to. And but obviously, when you're reading phonetically, you have to conjure the pictures, you have to create the symbols inside in your left brain, or you have to work both sides of your brain. And so I'm just saying that as a example of how differently we actually think between us and Japanese or Chinese and some other languages. Arabic has certain imagery to it also. And so this is sort of the significance of Dr. Jung's first paragraph here, which is talking about the European trying to understand the East. Dr. Jung comments that Westerners hide their heart under the cloak of rationality, of scientific understanding, logos. What Richard Wilhelm did for Dr. Jung is that he penetrated deeply enough to find this pearl of intuitive insight, and it was not pigeonholed by the specialists. And so Dr. Jung was able to understand it from a psychological point of view. My deceased friend, Richard Wilhelm, co-author of this book, sent me the text of The Secret of the Golden Flower at a time that was crucial for my own work. This was in 1928. I had been investigating the processes of the collective unconscious since the year 1913, and had obtained results that seemed to me questionable in more than one respect. They not only lay far beyond everything known to academic psychology, but they also overstepped the bounds of any medical, purely personal psychology. They confronted me with an extensive phenomenology to which hitherto known categories and methods could no longer be applied. Continuing on. My results based on 15 years of effort seemed inconclusive because no possibility of comparison offered itself. I knew of no realm of human experience with which I might have backed up my findings with some degree of assurance. The only analogies, and these I must say were far removed in time, I found scattered among the reports of the heresiologists. In other words, the writers about various heresies over the 2,000 years of the Christian experience. I'm going to read from The Spirit in Man, Art, and Literature by C.G. Jung, also published by Princeton University Press. And this is from the eulogy that Dr. Jung gave at the time of the funeral for Richard Wilhelm. This memorial service took place in May 1930. Richard Wilhelm in Memoriam. It is no easy task for me to speak of Richard Wilhelm and his work because, starting very far away from one another, our paths crossed in comet-like fashion. His life work has a range that lies outside my compass. I have never seen the China that first molded his thought and later continued to engross him, nor am I familiar with its language, the living expression of the Chinese East. I stand indeed as a stranger outside that vast realm of knowledge and experience in which Wilhelm worked as a master of his profession. He as a sinologist and I as a doctor would probably never have come into contact had we remained specialists. But we met in the field of humanity, which begins beyond the academic boundary posts. There lay our point of contact. There the spark leapt across and kindled a light that was to become for me one of the most significant events of my life. Because of this, I may perhaps speak of Wilhelm and his work, thinking with grateful respect of this mind, which created a bridge between East and West and gave to the Occident the precious heritage of a culture thousands of years old, a culture perhaps destined to disappear forever. Okay, that was the first paragraph of the In Memoriam. It goes on for 10 pages, but I'm just going to read from the last paragraph as well. Wilhelm's life work is of such immense importance to me because it clarified and confirmed so much that I had been seeking, striving for, thinking, and doing in my efforts to alleviate the psychic sufferings of Europeans. It was a tremendous experience for me to hear through him in clear language things I had dimly divined in the confusion of our European unconscious. Indeed, I feel myself so very much enriched by him that it seems to me as if I had received more from him than from any other man. So I'll leave it at that. That is the tease for Monday night session at 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time.